Bobby, where are you? Bobby Friel. The silver lining in the dark cloud of the head of Army Heritage himself not being able to address. We're getting the man who is solely focused on heritage in the Army, as opposed to all the other things that Brigadier Doyle has to distract him. Further to that, Bobby is a reservist officer. His professional work is in heritage. He's an archaeologist, I think that gives him a unique standing. We've got someone in Army Heritage at last who is, in his gut, is interested in the subject rather than just fulfilling the posting. He's very occupied too in heritage up in Orkney, where he lives. I reckon he must have the biggest travel claim for residence to place of duty of anyone in the Army. Orkney to Camberley, I reckon the motor mileage allowance must be off the record. Bobby.
There's a story behind that. Right, good morning. I would like to thank Sir Philip and Amot for giving Army Heritage the chance to present this morning. And I'd like to give Brigadier Doyle sends his apologies for being unable to attend, but obviously he's been called away for another activity. Just to put what you said there in context, I am SO1 Arms and Services Reserve. So I'm not directly involved in Heritage. I'm not part of Heritage Branch. But since March, I've been leaning in to support Kathleen, who is at the minute Heritage Branch, and Brigadier Doyle on a number of projects, and also the general day-to-day running to give her some backup and some depth. I am an archaeologist by trade. I specialise now in the use of UAV, doing landscape survey, site detailed recording, and I also specialise in forensic search and recovery for clandestine burials. So that's basically this is why I'm never at home and my wife doesn't know me. Today, I want to give an overview of the Army Heritage and the Army's view of Army Heritage. So I'm going to touch on 4 key areas. I'm going to touch our purpose and ethos, our guidance and engagement, provide an update on some key current projects that have already been mentioned, and then highlight how the Army Heritage can support broader initiatives such as Upland Vector. So let's start with why heritage matters to us. The Executive Committee of the Army Board defines heritage as underpinning the Army's ethos, character, identity, and purpose, and that won't change. It illustrates our unique contribution to the nation's culture, history, and traditions, and it explains the Army's standing in society, both in the past, the present, and the future. And I'm sure that you'll agree with me that heritage connects our past to our present and future, and it shapes how we can see ourselves, and more importantly, how the public perceives us. Through Army Heritage, we support 3 essential pillars: ethos, engagement, and education, and we provide through governance, policy, and engagement. The Army Heritage Branch plays a critical role in governance and policy, striving to ensure that you, or Heritage Network, is preserved, accessible, and aligned with the wider Army objectives as required and where possible. Engagement is equally vital, as it is with the connections held within our museums and associated heritage sites that the public, serving personnel, and veterans connect with our story. Across the Arms and Services network, heritage helps underpin both identity, cohesion, and therefore strengthening the Army's overall ethos. Here we see a snapshot of the main trends drawn out of the Heritage Branch annual data request from the supported museums. And I think it mirrors quite well some of the information you've raised now from the AMOT survey. I would suggest that the trends observed whilst being held on 2024 data can be projected out to 2025 and provide an honest representation of where the supported museums see themselves at present. It's clear from the returns that the network remains both broad in scope and activity, and there's a wide range of social media, community engagement, and support to the armed forces. There's a clear use, as been stated already, of the importance of veterans and volunteers. We couldn't survive without it. And also, it was really highlighted here was the support to veterans through early breakfasts, lunches, Model for Heroes activities, plasma, and such events as that, along to assistance in some cases with welfare cases, which is all highly appreciated. We've mentioned the Born May study. Quick overview. You're all aware of the 2011 Born May study, which recommended reducing the MOD funded to 1 museum per regiment or corps. This led to a reduction from 69 museums in 2011 to 53 in 2017, and a planned further reduction to 41 by 2030. The current review, which was directed by DCGS to 2024 Army Heritage Committee, considers the Born May recommendations in relation to factors including the Army strategy, regeneration requirements, and UpConnect. But importantly, it must be understood that any decisions from the study will not affect those museums who lost their funding in 2017 at this time. And when the findings are due to be presented at the Army Heritage Committee in December 2025. Whilst most of the workload sits with the NAM and Army Infra, Head Arms and Services, Heritage Branch, and AMOT have been actively involved throughout the process to date, lending information, guidance, advocacy, and detail when required. This has been my baby over since March. Basically, we looked at a project that would allow the provision of, most importantly, in-service material, as in material, to the museums, to allow the museums to represent modern soldiering. And we looked at the JSP 462 gifting process and realised that the problem with that was it had to be obsolete equipment. Therefore, in-service equipment that wasn't obsolete fell out of that remit. And also, the requirement for 9 signatures for every piece of kit, whether it be a helicopter or a button, right, was not fit for purpose for the time and didn't fit what we wanted to do. So, being an ex-quartermaster, I looked at different solutions and I pushed a number of doors. I pushed a lot of doors. And we have come up with what is relatively simple process working alongside the NAM. And the process now stands, and it has been tested with the pilot, that the requesting museum puts a request into the National Army Museum with a rationale, just to clarify on rationale. The National Army Museum then goes via the Field Army, DCC and Log support, which is dismounted close combat. And it's split into 3 requests. It's either clothing, weapon systems, or Virtus and survival. That then gets fed through that system, and quite quickly, it will be an inter-unit loan to the NAM. So the NAM has a serial 1 unit identification number, which is the same as any other unit or subunit in the Army. That allows equipment to be loaned to them. We've agreed on a 2-year confirmation period, so therefore you will hold it for 2 years. At that 2-year point, the NAM will then provide confirmation that the equipment is still there and is still present, serviceable, and accountable. That will go back to Field Army and they'll be happy. It doesn't mean you return it after 2 years. It just means it's accounted, it's a storage check. That goes through to LIDAS, it gets distributed to the National Army Museum, and then they put it out to the museums. Now, that has cut the time lag down to a number of months rather than I've seen examples in the past of 2 or 3 years, and people just lose interest. As it says on the slide, this is to do with current materiel, not obsolete equipment. Okay, we've had significant advantages and step forwards, including heavy machine guns, 81mm mortars, sharpshooter and sniper rifles. And Julian, where are you? Was quite amazed to see the last two items turn up in the armoury.
Astonished, I think.
Okay. So the pilot was completed, and we had a little lag because of confirming what the UIN status was. But in August this year, the pilot museums received their STA Invertus equipment, and the weapons followed on last month. Okay, so that's been quite a good, I class that as a result. There are challenges. Uniform, because we're looking at G4 disposal uniform items, that takes a bit of time. We've gone to Andover, and we're working closely with the Andover stores, the support unit there, so that we can get that. I've also made inroads into Sandhurst. That's not unsurmountable. Limited availability of SA8 AA3s, that creates a gap because that's still in service and requirement. And we always have to remember that availability and operational requirement will always take precedence. So it's in-service equipment, therefore, if we need it for service, that's where it goes. If it isn't needed, it'll be held in the museums. Now, as you see, we did get two requests, one from my own museum for a Starstreak missile system, we couldn't get it, and specialist items from the sappers, which to do with the Novichok. Those are things that the museums really need to go to their regimental headquarters and their corps colonels, because those are regimental assets, whether it be something that you can do through the JSP 462 and get it as custodianship, or whether it's something you can get for short-term display within the museum, and then it goes back to the regiment. That doesn't fall, we found out it doesn't fall into the remit. The project, now that we've accepted it, it's a success, is now being released on a wider, to all museums now, on the NAM newsletter. We will work on this together, and throughout this, and rightly so, AMOT have been testing me and pushing buttons and opening. Every time I opened the door, they would push it a little bit further and put a toe in and say, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? And we've tried, and we've adjusted it, and this has worked out to be the quickest resolution. Now, it's not a replacement for the gifting JSP 462 process. It runs alongside it, because the gifting process, I would say, is fit for purpose. Since March, I've been involved in 2 activities, and where it succeeds is where the sponsor has strong advocacy and maintains contact with the 9 steps. If the sponsor pushes it, that means that equipment gets to the museum, is signed off properly, and then they take on full custodianship, and it becomes part of their collection. And I think that's the right way to do for certain objects. So we move on just to round up. Fighting power. The moral, physical, and conceptual components are core elements of the British military's doctrine of fighting power. And this describes the overall ability for force to operate and engage in combat. Whilst the conceptual component provides ideas and doctrine, and the physical represents the tangible means of fighting, such as equipment, workforce, and logistics, it's with the moral component involving the will and the spirit and motivation of the people to fight, including leadership and cohesion, that Army heritage finds its place. And to that end, therefore, I'd like to highlight something that has come up in the last couple of weeks, and we are now running, or we're now in the process of Op Invictor. And Op Invictor is a strategic initiative to rapidly increase Army recruitment and inflow to address critical personnel shortfalls. There are going to be 3 lines of effort: attract, convert, and train. And Heritage has a clear role to play in the attract by inspiring potential recruits by showcasing the Army story, achievements, and relevance. Of course, you'll need support from Army Heritage, and I think this plays into your hand and the points that AMOT have made, that the more involved we are in these activities, the more of a response you have from the Army and more of a value you are seen by the Army. Maybe a hidden value, especially with the visitor numbers. In the coming weeks, Brigadier Doyle will write to the directors of the supported museums in first instance to outline how they can support this effort, and he sees this as an opportunity for the Heritage Network to actively contribute to building the future force. Final. So to conclude, I feel that the Army heritage should not just be about preserving the past. It's a living part of who we are as a community and where we are going in the future. Through governance, material support, reviews and integration with initiatives like Op and Vector, Head Arms and Services, Heritage Branch, the regiments and corps, colonels, AMOT, and you are ensuring that the heritage remains central to the Army's identity and mission. And I thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Are you able to stay with us all day?
I'm here all day.
Great. Are there any immediate questions that would engage the whole audience, or?
I'm here at coffee break, I'm here at lunch.
Right. If not, can I just say again, thank you, Bob, for stepping in. I'm sorry to narrow your focus, but I know that what your focus is at the moment, because of course there is no Jeremy Fowler any longer, is there?
No, just a quick one on my focus. I have 7 days left in the job. So I will ensure, as myself and Julian have already spoke, this is set in stone, and I will ensure the next person who gets my role is well read into the activity of heritage in what and an art.
I'm glad I came to the conference. You discover all sorts of things that you wouldn't hitherto know. But Bobby, who's your replacement?
No, it hasn't been boarded yet.
It hasn't been boarded. Right.
But I am staying a couple of just Julian is aware of this because we've discussed many times. My next role is SO1 Cultural Property Protection with the British Army. So I helped set the unit up, and I'm going back to command it for my last 3 years. So this is the Defence's response to the 54 Hague Convention and the risk of cultural property and cultural heritage under conflict.
Oh.
So I will still be involved, and I would still like to stay involved with AMOT, and I know I'm getting involved with the Heritage Branch.
Hooray. Good.